different governance structures, different aggregation models where we do work cooperatively. And, you know, as an academic, we complain about the way a particular performance-based model is applied to us because it leads to distortions. That's not because we're against performance-based. There are other ways that you can judge your performance than pure market competition. And I think that does us a disservice in New Zealand.
What do you think about models, Sean, funding models, more money?
I think it is actually a matter of investing more. I mean, I think we've lagged behind the rest of the developed world because we didn't make hard choices 20 years ago
to invest in science and technology. And we're still way behind in the R&D spend, right?
Yeah, we are.
Both
we're
public and
considerably
private.
behind, and particularly in the private sector. But there's evidence that shows that government spending needs to reach a certain level before the private sector spending takes off. So it's both public and private spending that needs to take place. And it is about putting resource into it, right? You don't do science for free. You do need to put resource, you do need to pay people well, and you do need equipment to do science and innovation.
Derek, do you think that there's a country that we should look to try to emulate, who is in some way a close comparison with New Zealand?
No, I've never really been a fan of, saying we should be the next Israel or the next Finland, and we've got our own issues and we've got our own opportunities, so we just need to cut our own cloth. But, following on from that last point, I think that we've been doing very well in the last 10 years in trying to get more advanced in technology and invest in new companies and do grants. And as I said, the small ecosystem is building. But, it could take another 30 years if we continue like this. We need to do something bold. One politician somewhere along the line needs to really just say, look, we're going to change it entirely. We're going to import 100 of the best people from the world that know how to convert technology into IP. We're going to import 100 of the best entrepreneurs in the world that want to come to New Zealand to build businesses. We're going to increase our funding in R&D by 10x. And we're going to do this over the next 5 years. And if it didn't happen, I'm sorry, you can shoot me. But at least I tried. And until something like that happens, we'll get incremental growth and we'll continue to get better and better at certain things. But, we need an Apollo-like goal. We need kind of real...
What's the expression you guys use? Step change.
Yeah, parallel. So I mean, but we need a bigger vision, and then at least we can shoot for something. At the moment, it's small goals, small goals, small goals, and all the while chasing Australia's GDP, which is just another entirely discussion in itself. But that's my take. So you create your own vision for our own country. You have a portfolio strategy of what types of things we're going to support. Some is organic, some is very strategic, some is building on what we already have expertise in. You fund it, but there's no point giving heaps of R&D money if we don't have enough entrepreneurs and connectors. So you can't just do one bit. It's a systems approach. Write some big checks, take some big bets, and if you get fired as PM, and then 10 years down the track, we have 1,000 great organizations that have done amazing. That's actually what you went in PM to be at the first place, right? Not to stay in office. And so I think someone just needs to start thinking about some more bolder ways to think about these problems.
The Chief Science Advisor to the Prime Minister. Has been taking notes.
I think that's the lesson to learn from other small and clever countries, that there's no one magic bullet, that if you go and talk to the Israelis, they'll say we did 30 or 40 things in parallel. If we went if you go to Denmark, they'll say it was the EU declaration which said they had to get 1% public and 2% private investment in R&D by 2010. They went out and did it and tripled their investment in R&D in over 20 years. We can't emulate a country. We've got to find our own path. As one of the best commentators on small countries pointed out, Israel has Nokia envy. Finland has startup envy. And that's really making the point. Every small country has to find its own path. There are different ways to get to be a rich, enriched, prosperous country, but we have to find our own path and be prepared to make the multiple moves at once that are needed, rather than think you can do it incrementally and sequentially.
Yeah, we need to be the new New Zealand, right? And we just need to re-envisage ourselves, right? And look at how we want to be in 10, 20 years' time, and see what we need to do. And I agree with Derek, right? We need some bold moves. Things are getting better slowly, but it's on that 10 to 20 to 30 year time frame. And of course, other countries are taking bold moves. And I think one thing we can learn from these other countries is that bold moves are probably necessary.
And also, they're not devoid of error or failure, these countries. You hear about the success stories, but no doubt they had failures as well. We're very sensitive to failure, aren't we? We think, oh, we've done that, didn't work, never do that again.
And entrepreneurs succeed by learning from their failures. That's the nature of a serial entrepreneur. Countries need to do also. And, yeah, of course we'll make mistakes. Not everything that we plan to do will work. The only time you won't make any mistakes is if you don't do anything.
But we haven't. We tell ourselves we can't afford mistakes. We can't afford not to make mistakes.
We can't afford not to make mistakes.
I knew you'd say that. And Derek, I think you owe it to the group to share your mistakes with us. Have you ever had, you know, a strategic... Because you're the high flyer and you're influential this and the most promising that.
I've been involved in the starting of 10 different companies, and the vast majority of them have failed. So there's a good example of, you know, not always succeeding.
And look at him today, ladies and gentlemen.
Still a failure.
But very well-dressed.
I think actually, yeah, it's one of the things that entrepreneurs and scientists have in common, because a lot of science fails, right? You've got to be very persistent at science, and often that's where you learn the most, is when one of your experiments or your theories falls over. And so there's a lot in common between entrepreneurship and the scientific method.
Mm. So, in short, we all need to be bolder in our various ways. Yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you to the panel, please, Sean and Carolyn and Sir Peter and Derek.